Do you remember the heartwarming moments and unforgettable characters of Family Affair? This beloved sitcom captured the hearts of millions during its original run from 1966 to 1971. Over 5 decades have passed, but the charm of the Davis family still lives on. In this video, we take a nostalgic journey back in time to revisit how the cast has changed over the years and discover where life has taken them in 2025. Whether you're a lifelong fan or just discovering the magic of Family Affair, this is a tribute you won't want to miss. Lee Meriwether, who portrayed Claudia Wells in Family Affair, was 32 years old in 1967 when she joined the show as the elegant and poised family friend who occasionally offered guidance to Uncle Bill and the children. Following the show's end, her career never reached the same prominence again. She landed sporadic roles in television and stage, but struggled with typecasting and a decline in opportunities. Lee was married to actor Frank Aletter, and while their union seemed ideal in public, it was riddled with emotional distance and professional rivalry. They divorced in 1974 after 16 years of marriage, leaving Meriwether emotionally drained. She had 2 daughters, Kyle and Leslie, but her demanding career often kept her distant from them during their formative years. Her relationship with her children later became strained, especially after a brief second marriage to a producer that ended in infidelity and scandal. Financial difficulties plagued her in the 1980s due to poor investments and a failed attempt to launch a production company. Now 89 years old, Meriwether lives in relative obscurity in a modest apartment in Los Angeles, surviving on a fixed pension. Her current net worth is estimated to be just under $150,000. Brian Keith, who portrayed Uncle Bill Davis in Family Affair, was 45 years old when he stepped into the role of the warm yet career-driven bachelor who suddenly becomes guardian to his brother's 3 orphaned children. Keith brought both gravitas and tenderness to the role, earning him acclaim. However, his life beyond the screen was marked by sorrow. Married 3 times, his first marriage to Frances Helm ended in bitter divorce, and his second, to actress Judy Landon, was plagued by infidelity and emotional distance. They had 5 children, including a son, Michael, who tragically died by suicide in 1993, a loss from which Keith never recovered. Professionally, after Family Affair, Keith struggled to find roles of equal stature and battled with financial ruin following poor investments. His final marriage to Hawaiian actress Victoria Young was one of companionship, but Keith remained haunted by personal failures. Suffering from emphysema and lung cancer, he died by suicide on June 24, 1997, at the age of 75. His estate was reportedly worth less than $500,000, diminished by medical bills and long-standing debts. Keith died alone in his Malibu home, leaving behind a legacy overshadowed by heartache and loss. Kathy Garver, who played the poised and responsible Sissy Patterson Davis, was 21 years old when she began portraying the eldest sibling in Family Affair. Her performance captured the grace and resilience of a young woman thrust into adulthood too soon. While the series gave her early fame, it typecast her, making it difficult to transition into adult roles. Off-screen, Garver experienced a turbulent love life. She married businessman David Travis in the 1980s, and they had 1 son, Reed, but their marriage was reportedly strained by her ongoing battle with depression and his long work absences. Rumors of infidelity plagued their later years, though the couple never divorced. Professionally, Garver's attempts at reviving her career through voice acting and B-movies largely failed, and she was often forced to attend low-paying fan conventions to make ends meet. Her relationship with her siblings became estranged following a dispute over her late mother's inheritance. Now 79 years old, Garver lives quietly in a small California town. Her current net worth is estimated at around $200,000. She has spoken candidly in recent years about regret, loneliness, and the pressures of child stardom, though she still clings to the golden memories of her time on Family Affair. Anissa Jones, who portrayed the sweet and lively Buffy Davis, was only 8 years old when she became America's darling on Family Affair. Her iconic Mrs. Beasley doll and innocent charm captivated viewers, But fame came at a terrible cost. After the series ended, Jones faced immense pressure to maintain her image, despite growing up fast in a brutal Hollywood system. Her parents divorced bitterly, fighting over her earnings, which she never fully accessed. She struggled through adolescence, turning to drugs as a way to cope with the expectations that crushed her spirit. Anissa's brief romantic relationships were marked by instability and substance abuse. She never married and had no children. By the age of 18, her life had spiraled tragically out of control. On August 28, 1976, she died of a massive drug overdose in a friend's apartment in Oceanside, California. Her death shocked the nation and became a symbol of the dark side of child stardom. She left no will and had squandered most of her earnings. Her remaining estate was valued at approximately $60,000. Anissa Jones was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Cemetery, forever remembered as a symbol of lost innocence in a business that devoured her youth. Johnny Whitaker brought youthful energy to the role of Jody Patterson Davis, Buffy's twin brother, when he was just 7 years old. His portrayal of the curly-haired, sensitive boy with a mischievous smile became central to Family Affair's emotional core. Yet Johnny's journey after the show ended was anything but heartwarming. He became addicted to drugs and alcohol in his early 20s, following years of struggling with his identity and the collapse of his acting career. Despite being raised in a devout Mormon family, he felt isolated and misunderstood. He married actress Darcy Elizabeth Ramey in 1984, but their union lasted only 5 years, marred by his addiction and financial instability. They had no children. By the 1990s, Johnny was bankrupt and living in halfway homes. Eventually, with the help of family and a 12-step program, he found sobriety and now works as a counselor for recovering addicts. He remains estranged from his ex-wife but has reconnected with some of his siblings. Now 65, he lives modestly in California, with an estimated net worth of $50,000. Although he occasionally makes public appearances to discuss addiction recovery, the fame and innocence of his youth are long gone, replaced by hard-won survival and cautious hope. Sebastian Cabot played the refined and deeply affectionate Mr. Giles French, the British butler whose heartwarming devotion to the children won viewers over. At 48 years old in 1966, Cabot brought a stately charm to the role, informed by his theatrical background and distinctive voice. Yet behind the scenes, Cabot struggled with his weight and chronic health issues, including diabetes and cardiovascular problems. Though he was married to Kathleen Rose Humphreys and had 3 children, his family life was marked by prolonged absences and emotional detachment caused by his demanding career and bouts of depression. After Family Affair, Cabot's career waned, and he fell into a deep period of inactivity and self-doubt. He attempted a few voice roles but felt forgotten by an industry that once celebrated him. He died of a stroke on August 22, 1977, at the age of 59, reportedly alone in a British hotel room while visiting family. His estate, impacted by medical expenses and mismanaged funds, was estimated at around $150,000. Though often overlooked in the later years of his life, Cabot remains a quiet legend, remembered as the man whose dignity and warmth elevated an entire generation's idea of family. Heather Angel, who portrayed Miss Faversham in Family Affair, was 56 years old when she took on the role of the warm yet strict English nanny-like figure who offered occasional wisdom to the main cast. Known for her dignified poise and classical British charm, Angel had once enjoyed a successful film career in the 1930s and 1940s before her gradual shift to television. However, after Family Affair, she struggled to find substantial roles and quietly faded from the spotlight. Her personal life was marked by tragedy. She was married to director Robert B. Sinclair, but their marriage ended in heartbreak when Sinclair was fatally shot during a home invasion in 1970. They had one son, Anthony, who later distanced himself from the public eye. Angel suffered deep emotional trauma following her husband's death and never remarried. Her later years were plagued by chronic illness and isolation. She lived modestly in Los Angeles, relying on a dwindling pension and minimal royalties. She passed away on December 13, 1986, at the age of 77 due to cancer. Her estate at the time of her death was estimated at only $150,000, and she reportedly left most of it to a local animal shelter, reflecting her lifelong love for animals, which had become her primary comfort in her final years. Noel Drayton, who played Mr. Hardcastle, the stoic and often gruff building superintendent on Family Affair, was 56 when he took on the role. Though his screen time was limited, Drayton's performances added a grounding sense of realism to the show. A South African-born actor, Drayton had a promising career in the 1950s but gradually found fewer opportunities, often relegated to minor television appearances. Off-screen, his life was a somber reflection of mischances and emotional distance. He was married once to a fellow actress, Evelyn Corday, but the marriage was short-lived and ended in divorce after the tragic stillbirth of their only child, a loss that left both emotionally scarred. He never remarried. Drayton's later years were marked by seclusion and bitterness, often writing unpublished memoirs about the injustices of Hollywood. He became estranged from his remaining family and was reportedly living in a small, rent-controlled apartment in Los Angeles at the time of his death. He died on December 7, 1981, from liver failure at the age of 68. His estate was modest, valued at approximately $40,000, with no known heirs. His funeral was sparsely attended, reflecting a life that fame had long forgotten. Sherry Alberoni, who portrayed Sharon James, the cheerful teen friend of Buffy and Sissy in Family Affair, was only 20 years old when she joined the show. With her bright smile and sunny energy, Alberoni had been a mouseketeer in the original Mickey Mouse Club and was once thought to have a promising career. Yet after Family Affair, her acting opportunities dwindled. She married talent agent Ronald Cohen in 1972, and they had 2 children, Benjamin and Dana, but their marriage grew increasingly strained due to financial pressures and Sherry's growing disillusionment with the industry. Following their divorce in 1990, Sherry suffered from bouts of depression and was hospitalized twice. She attempted a return to voice acting but found little success. Her daughter Dana later wrote a memoir about growing up with a mother stuck between 2 eras. Now 78, Sherry lives alone in a modest condo in Burbank, supported by a small pension and residuals that barely cover expenses. She rarely appears in public, and though she's expressed bitterness about the industry's abandonment, she remains nostalgic about her Family Affair years. Her current estate is estimated at around $120,000, and she is reportedly estranged from her son. Kim Carruth, who played the precocious and often dramatic little Barbara on Family Affair, was just 8 years old when she appeared on the show. A child star best known for her role as Gretel in The Sound of Music, Carruth was widely adored. However, as with many child actors, her fame faded early. She attempted to transition into adult roles in the late 1970s but was met with limited success and brutal rejections that crushed her self-esteem. Kim married French businessman Philippe Lequebec in 1985, and they had 1 son, Eric. The marriage, though initially passionate, was tumultuous due to cultural clashes and her lingering identity crisis. They divorced in 2001. Carruth battled anorexia and depression in her 30s and later developed a dependency on prescription medication following a back injury. Though she has occasionally spoken at Sound of Music reunions, she now lives quietly in Pasadena. At 66, she spends most of her time painting and has said she feels like a ghost of who I used to be. Her estate is estimated at around $300,000, though much of it is tied up in medical expenses and legal settlements following a brief but costly lawsuit over unauthorized use of her childhood image. Frank Maxwell, who portrayed George Nelson in Family Affair, was 54 years old when he took on the role of the gruff but dependable building superintendent who occasionally brought both comic relief and heartfelt wisdom to the Davis family. While his character exuded stability, Maxwell's personal life was anything but. He married stage actress Lillian Tynes in 1949, and though their union lasted over 4 decades, it was marked by emotional distance and long separations due to his demanding career. They had one son, David, whose troubled adolescence led to estrangement from his father. After Family Affair, Maxwell struggled to find meaningful roles, often relegated to uncredited appearances and voiceovers that barely paid the bills. He quietly battled depression throughout the 1980s and survived 2 heart attacks. In 1993, he lost his wife to cancer, which deepened his loneliness. Though he remained active in community theater, his Hollywood presence had faded. Financial missteps and poor investments left him with modest means, and by the time of his death on August 4, 2004, at age 87, his estate was valued at a mere $150,000. He passed away from heart failure in his modest Glendale apartment, surrounded by faded headshots and old scripts, a forgotten figure from television's golden age. Olin Soule, who played the meticulous and somewhat nervous Mr. Fisk in Family Affair, was 58 years old when he stepped into the role. Known for his thin frame, high-pitched voice, and reserved demeanor, Soule often played timid professionals and background characters throughout his long career. Despite appearing in over 200 films and TV shows, Soule never achieved stardom and always struggled financially. He married Norma Elizabeth in 1940, and the couple had 2 children, Peter and Susan. Though the marriage lasted until his death, it was strained by constant financial stress and Soule's obsessive commitment to his work. After Family Affair, roles dwindled, and he relied heavily on voice acting to support his family, notably voicing Batman in various animated series. Despite his recognizable voice, Soule remained anonymous in public. His final years were marked by increasing frailty, a painful battle with arthritis, and the psychological toll of being forgotten by an industry he had devoted his life to. He passed away on February 1, 1994, at the age of 84 due to lung complications. His estate, after medical debts, was estimated at just under $75,000. Soule died quietly in his Los Angeles home, survived by a wife who admitted in later interviews that they had lived more as roommates than partners for the last 15 years. Eve Plumb, who portrayed the sweet and curious Eve Bowers in Family Affair at age 10, brought a youthful innocence to the show that made her a brief favorite among audiences. Despite the early fame, Plum's post-Family Affair life was full of emotional turbulence and difficult transitions. Best known for her later role as Jan Brady on The Brady Bunch, she struggled with typecasting and the constant comparison to her iconic character. She married TV producer Kenneth Lowry in 1989, but their relationship was rocky, strained by Eve's emotional volatility and Kenneth's infidelity. They had no children, though Plum later admitted to a failed adoption process that left her deeply scarred. She has spoken publicly about decades of therapy to cope with childhood fame, anxiety, and eating disorders. Her painting career offered some solace, but never brought consistent income. Though she owns property in Laguna Beach, her net worth is modest, estimated around $500,000, much of it tied to real estate rather than active income. Now 66, Plum lives a largely reclusive life, rarely appearing at fan conventions or in the public eye, and remains estranged from several former castmates. She has described her current life as peaceful but lonely, a far cry from the spotlight she once knew. Charles Herbert, who played the troubled teen Wendell in a 1968 episode of Family Affair, was 19 years old and already a cautionary tale in Hollywood. Once one of the most sought-after child actors of the 1950s, Herbert's early fame brought both wealth and ruin. His character in the show mirrored his real life, awkward, emotionally stunted, and seeking stability. After his career collapsed in the early 70s, Herbert turned to drugs and alcohol, burning through the money he had earned as a child, much of which had been mismanaged or taken by family members. He married twice, first to a fellow struggling actress, Dana Lee, a brief and stormy marriage marked by mutual addiction. His second marriage to administrative worker Carol Jenkins was longer but marred by his unemployment and depression. He had 2 children, Amanda and Sean, both of whom remained distant in his later years due to his erratic behavior. In his final decades, He worked sporadically as a voiceover coach and lived in subsidized housing. Charles Herbert passed away on October 31, 2015, at the age of 66 due to a heart attack compounded by years of health neglect. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated to be less than $20,000. He died virtually unknown to the generation he once entertained, his legacy a tragic example of a child star undone by a lack of guidance and care. Which character from Family Affair is your favorite? How do you feel knowing that some of the cast members have passed away? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for your support.